Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Stories, hashtag Candid Conversations with my cousin. My name is Kim Brits and my wonderful co-host all the way from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, USA. Lauren Brits, how are you?
Hi, Kev. I'm doing really good today. Happy new week.
That was probably the best intro I've done since we've been on this.
It's so good. I loved it. You're getting that Fort Lauderdale, Florida tongue twister going there. It's great. Things are great here. I officially pulled out my fall outfit. It's fall in Florida. It's still really hot. So it's more like we're pretending it's fall in Florida. But, you know, it's the season and Thanksgiving is coming up towards the end of the month. And then, of course, we have the holidays, Christmas and Hanukkah. And, yes, so we're excited. We're getting into the holiday fever, the mode. So that's
while we're on that conversation, just for clarity's sake, what is the difference between Thanksgiving and Christmas?
So Thanksgiving is an American holiday that, if you go read up on it, has much to do with the pioneers and the Native Americans.
Yeah.
And that's quite a long story, so I urge everybody to go and read up on it. But it's a time where you can give thanks. So that always happens towards the end. I think it's the last Thursday in November every year. And it's a really big deal here, everyone. And it starts getting cold here as well. It's already snowing in a lot of places. It's already cold. Actually, it's just not that cold here. But it's a time to give thanks, really, and to wrap your mind around giving thanks. And I think this year is going to be a big Thanksgiving in America. It's because everybody's like, thank you, you know, so thankful for the things they have, hopefully, at this point, after all of this shenanigans this year. So yeah, we're giving thanks. And then Christmas, of course, is Christmas. But we also have, of course, Hanukkah, which is the Jewish holiday. And they have, I think it's 8 days of Hanukkah. I stand corrected. But we kind of observe everybody. That's why everyone says happy holidays. But these days, people say Merry Christmas if they know people are, you know, Happy Hanukkah or whatever. So Christmas obviously is Christmas and Hanukkah is Hanukkah. So they happen kind of close to each other.
So officially, Thanksgiving happens in the last week of November.
Yes, the last Thursday is officially Thanksgiving, but then we generally take off a few days from there. So
I think I should start that as a family thing for my family.
I think that's a great idea.
Be grateful and thankful that you're alive and healthy, and we're still get to do this. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, we do have to remind people that this is what the holiday is still about, because right after Thanksgiving you get Black Friday, and on that Monday you get Cyber Monday. So it's a big shopping spree every year. Somebody gets trampled at Walmart, you know. So we have to remind people, because the prices of things drop considerably. So it's actually quite unbelievable. That's a good time of year to purchase everything you want. But,
exactly,
you know, people lose their minds a little bit about it.
So one of the things that I want to raise, we're going to chat about you coming to South Africa. So we're going to chat about that last. One of the other things, I was on checking out the news and just, you know, updating on what's happening in the world. And I saw an alarming tweet happening at one of the at one of the taxi ranks on Twitter. And
in South Africa, right?
Yeah. And what happened was you could see people following two women walking around the taxi ranks. And what was happening in the actual tweet was these women were dressed. They were dressed quite suggestively. I wouldn't say they were dressed not suggestively. It was quite skimpy. But the alarming thing when you watched the actual tweet was you had men like following and cheering and whistling and shouting and running after them with the camera. And then other men were like lifting their dresses up, right up, so you could see half their bodies, like almost accosting them. And I was looking at this going, oh my God, like we really do still live in the dark ages. Like it's just like mind-boggling, you know. So, you know, when I saw that, the whole thing about Kamala Harris being in office and the Me Too movement, and you know, that conversation, everything to do with around women. And to me, it's an important conversation based on the fact that I have a daughter, and this is the world she's growing up in. You know, you and I have this conversation. We have such different, well, similar but different countries we live in. You know, from stances and things that's happened and are happening. The the alarming thing to me was, like, it shocks me. It literally, you know, it takes my breath away to think that we still live in a time where that kind of behavior is even remotely okay. Like remotely, not even, you know, it's not even sort of okay. It's just like, what the hell is going on?
Well, just
and I know, you know, like, sorry, but I'm like, the current president has had his fair share of that. The Me Too movement has just happened in such a big way. You know, there's like, and that's, you know, that's the topic of today. Like, what the hell? Like, how do we actually, you know, in terms of you experiencing America and the US in the way that you do, is this something that you come across? Is this something you have experienced? Because and one of the things you mentioned offline was someone asking you if that's a consideration. Is this something you have to consider, like when you, like where you're going during the day, or like, you know, like,
yeah, you know,
I'm stumbling for words because I'm going, that's not a consideration I have. I don't kind of think, oh wow, I'm like, no, this person's going to touch me inappropriately, like, no, or suggest something inappropriately.
There's definitely, this is a theme that's coming up. I notice a few conversations happening in different places with regards to this. And I just want to go back a little bit. Yeah. First of all, there's a name for what they did to those women. It's called sexual assault, right? Yeah. And it's not okay. The not okay part, the even more not okay part is, why don't you care? Why is it, what happened? What made you so, like, I mean, I would like to have an honest conversation with someone who can answer that question, but the words that come up in my mind are disgusting. You know, like, ew, like, why do you want to grab somebody? It doesn't matter how she's dressed, you know, it just doesn't. Listen, we live in South Florida. We walk around in bikinis, shorts, and flip-flops. And if we're not in that and we're going off to the club or to the bar, you know, we're either cash or we're in our 6-inch heels and we got our dresses on and off we go. I mean, this is Miami, Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You know, this is where you can chill, but you're always sort of not wearing a lot of clothes. So, you know, that's a whole conversation on its own. And I'm like over that conversation because we've had it so much. And I'm like, you know what, get over it already, like figure it out. But also, it's not just the past or outgoing president that's had these issues. There is definitely issues with the incoming one. So where it comes to boundaries, all right, around women and other people. So, you know, there's a lot of, you know, when you look at politics in America, even just look, it looks different in Africa. I mean, but if you look even in Africa, 90% of politicians there that are running anyway the government are men. And here they're mostly white men, and there they're mostly black men because, you know, Africa, America. But I have had this conversation with my partner and my friends recently. I've stopped running outside because everyone thinks I live in this place where I can never get hurt, like this fluffy cloud. And I'm like, dude, I've had a hostage situation across the road from me. People are like, do you live in the hood? I'm like, well, I don't think so, but it doesn't look like a hood. But this happened there. Does it have to be in the hood always? You know, anyway, like these things don't happen in other places. You know, there's countless times I can tell you about where I've had to fight harder. I've had to speak louder. I've had to throw my hands up in the air to be noticed. You know, taking a woman seriously seems to be incredibly difficult for a certain part or still many men and population. I mean, it's amazing to me. I wonder if these men have daughters, because I do know a few men who have daughters and they're still like this. They're still like that. The daughter factor, it doesn't seem to change it necessarily, you know, whereas other men, they find they have daughters and suddenly all of this becomes important because they want to protect. But yeah, I mean, we've been living like Christian, my partner said to me the other day, he said something to me and it was so unimportant that for him that I can hardly remember it. And I just remember going through my head, like, am I going to be safe? Is it the right place? No. Will people know where I am? And this is an automatic process that just happens. Yeah. I don't know if am I more cautious because I come from South Africa? I mean, I have been sensitized again, you know, living in South Africa, you become very desensitized. Now when I go there, I can feel a lot more because I don't have that desensitized nature as much. But that sixth sense that we live with as South Africans is still there 24/7. It never leaves me. It's just not as intense. But yes, I no longer run outside because they try to kidnap a young girl in the area. And from a distance with a cap on and sunglasses, people don't know how old you are. So who knows who's coming for you? And not to mention my own personal experience of a very tragic event that happened in my life where I was actually stalked by a man for a very long time. And it ended in tragedy. But I feared for my life and the lives of a lot of people around me, especially children. So, you know, I've had to get to the point where I'm like, listen, I'm just not going to, I'm going to focus very much on what I want to achieve, regardless of whether the misogyny and the patriarchy and all these interesting thoughts still persist. I don't care anymore if you're looking at me like that. People look at us like this all the time. It is these days I turn around and I'm like, make sure your eyeballs don't fall out. You know, I'll come up with some smart remark and be like, hey, do you need a closer look? You know, like I'm a little bit antagonistic about it these days because I'm over feeling ashamed about it. I'm not ashamed of what I wear and how I look and the fact that I'm a woman. And I'd like to enjoy my life without being harassed. And all women on some level feel, I don't want to say all women feel certain things, but I know that I'm pretty sure most women struggle with something like that from the male world still, whether it's being taken seriously in business, whether it's going for a run and being catcalled along the sidewalk, whether you're driving down the road and the guy that stops next to you with all his crew in the back starts haggling you, you know, whether you're being stalked, whether some guys are videotaping you through a taxi rank, of lifting your dress up and showing the world your private parts. Like it's beyond me. I don't even know what to say about that. I just want to focus on creating something new, a new sort of narrative, because I'm not willing to pay much attention to those men much longer. These people are they either have to come to the table and think about what drives those thoughts. You know, in having this conversation, I read a few interesting things on the internet. I mean, you know, why don't men take women seriously? Blah, blah, blah. There's like 20 million articles. I come across one and it's like, I can't even repeat what this man calls woman in his PhD article.
Yeah, and he's a professor. I mean, we're not going to give him airtime. Don't.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of study time behind him, but he's got maybe the emotional intelligence of I don't know what. So, yeah.
But you know, and the reason why I thought this, you know, it's an important conversation to have is considering where the state of the world is, and you know, never mind COVID, never mind the impact and the lives lost because of COVID. But you know, like, what more? Like, the question is, what more must happen for humans, for people, for for us to get it? That, you know, like, the considerations and the impact of your behavior and how you step into the world and how you engage with the world and how you show up in the world matters. You know, it matters that you consider that there's someone else on the other side of that conversation. It matters that how you disregard someone affects them. It matters that the choice of words and language you use is important, that you recognize that. It matters that you respect someone else's space. You know, so kind of going, well, I don't know, is it a case of us just actively having these conversations and going, no, actually, dude, your behavior is out of line. You should be called out and you should be on camera. And I know that's something that you've done before, from someone having inappropriate behavior, of saying, enough of this crap. Let's actually show, like, you know, this is not okay that you do this. This is not okay that you send me inappropriate information or have inappropriate conversations with me. Like, it's not okay. And
I mean, it's not okay. You know, I came home the one day, and does everything have to be sexualized? I mean, really, I get it. But maybe it's funny, maybe it's not. I don't know. I came home one day, I needed a massage, right? So I was like, hey, I know a lot of people who do this massage in my life. So often when we're finding vendors these days, we just put it out on Facebook, and I put out, hey, I need a massage. Well, you can only imagine the response, and feel free to go look for the post and just search my profile and type massage, and you'll find it. People were like, hey, is that offer still available? I'm like, what offer? If you read the post, it's me that's looking for the massage, not giving them massage. And I mean, I'm sweet and kind, but at that point, I don't mind uncomfortable situations. In fact, I kind of thrive in them in a weird way. So I'll just say something to you, and it will catch you off guard. And this is what men, when I sometimes interact with them, this is what I do with them when they, you know, when something's going on, and I will make it very clear in our exchange what I'm, you know, experiencing here. And it becomes really awkward for them, to be honest, at the end of the day, because I'm really just pointing out a worldview or a mindset or a belief system that is old, that's not really serving you anymore. And, you know, at the end of the day, I was surprised that, I wasn't surprised actually at all. I was just like, oh, we're still here, you know, men that I haven't spoken to for a long time suddenly crawling out of the woodworks like a bunch of cockroaches, and just kind of, you know, hey, let me have a massage. And I'm like, come on already. Like, it's so pointless, you know, like, what am I going to say? Yeah, sure, I'll be right over. I mean, you know, no, obviously not. So it's a mindset,
because it's laughable. It's like, well, like, what the hell were you thinking? I'm
like, okay, it's an old joke. You know, it's like the comedy is over on that joke. Like, come on already, get something new. So it's a weird thing that I think, you know, one of the interesting things about this that has come up in my vision going forward in life is that women are starting to treat men this way as well now. You know, there's a lot of, and so this is one of the things, like, okay, men have done this to women, and now, you know, there's spaces around here where men are not allowed, workspaces, where no men are allowed to enter the building, okay? And I have declined to work there, or I've chosen not to, because to me, that's the same thing. I'm like, I'm not doing what the men did. I'm not going to do that, and then we come back around again. So it's great to have a female space to congregate. It really is. But to eliminate the presence of all male presence always is just a weird thing. Like, even if you had a little mix match, it would be better for me personally. But I now find women, especially extreme feminists, depending on what your version of feminism is and what your definition is, just like bashing men hating. And I'm like, wait, hold on. I'm seeing now the next wave of haters show up, and that's us. I'm like, we cannot do what they did to us. We are We're better than that. I'm sure we're better than that.
What I find interesting, and this is also what sparked part of this conversation in my head, I watched on Netflix, they have Hustlers with J-Lo. It's Netflix or Showmax, or one of the online streamers, but they're showcasing J-Lo's, one of her movies called Hustlers, where as a bunch of ladies that obviously did strip teasing, and obviously that kind of and you know, in certain countries that's legal, but the story behind the story is what the ladies were doing was they were eventually getting to a point where they were coaxing the guys into spending money, you know. But invariably the sub story there, or the additional story to that, was like, well, that's exactly why the men were going there in the first place. They were going there and paying to be coaxed in that way. And you kind of go, and they were arrested eventually because they were like, oh, seducing men and
opportunists, I guess I would call them.
And I'm going, okay, but hang on, like the subtext is kind of going, the women were arrested. None of those men were arrested for being there.
Yeah, or we were there.
And that's like an interesting conversation, because you guys, like, it's like, and that's why this has sort of come to the foreground, is like, well, what are we saying about what is okay and what's not okay? So when men do it, it's okay, but when women do it, not okay. Like where is that? Why is there such a gray area with it the whole time? And you know, one of the things that comes to mind is equal pay, and Hollywood has been so vocal about that, but yet, you know, they so many people still don't get equally paid, and you kind of going, well, I don't understand why. Like, how? Why? What? Like, I don't get it.
There's something beautiful about the men in Hollywood that are taking the stance that they refuse to do the movie if the female leads don't, and etc. All the females don't get paid equal in their role, in that rate, you know. And there's something really sexy about that. It's like the man protecting the woman, you know. The masculine is protecting the feminine, not because she's weak. She's a powerful thing to protect, let me tell you. As most humans know, women are, I mean, we could talk endlessly about the beautiful nature of the feminine, but you know, they're taking the stance like, well, and I just love it. It's so beautiful. Do we need protection? It's not about, oh, we don't need protection. It's also, you know, interesting to me how a lot of women are so independent that they don't need anything from anybody. Well, we don't go in this alone ever. Even if you think you do, there's always other people around, you know. And
don't you think it speaks to that whole nature of acknowledgement, that you kind of, as much as it's acknowledgement of someone of different sex, it's the acknowledgement of someone as same sex and their choices, and whatever they choose to love whatever they want to love, and also the acknowledgement of color, like the race that show up in the world. It's like, you know what, if that person is qualified and the best for the job, give that person the job, whatever color they are, whatever sex they are, whatever gender they prefer to be acknowledged to. Like, when do we get to the point when we actually just acknowledge humans for being who the hell they want to be?
I think when we start acknowledging ourselves, you know, it's as simple as that. I mean, it's complicated. There's so much behind that, but it's actually that simple. And I guess it depends on the perspective you decide to take, and different perspectives at different times. But right now, it's quite simple. I mean, at the end of the day, if you are taking care of yourself, if you love yourself, if you think you're a cool and awesome person because you do great things in the world and you have purpose and you want to share. Not everybody has to be Mother Teresa. You know, I have a bit of a, you know, farmer's mouth. I don't know who to blame that on. I swear quite a bit. I can also be very graceful and sweet and kind and pretty direct. I mean, we're all just complex creatures. But I think if we acknowledge ourselves and we see a little bit of other people in ourselves, it's not always going to work out. But there's a mutual human respect that for the feminine was just pulled up under the rug. I mean, that story alone is a whole other story, you know. Who decided this at some point, that the feminine was just going to get crushed because she was so powerful? But it wasn't a competition until somebody made it a competition. The idea is that feminine and masculine, whether it's man, female, man, female, transgender, whatever, there's still qualities. I don't call it male and female. I call it feminine and masculine, because we all have both of these, and we present one a little bit more than the other at different times. Sometimes I need to be more masculine, and I have to, what's going on? And sometimes I need the soft, gentler touch. So we're always waxing and waning between these. But obviously, for me personally, I present a more feminine approach, and I want my masculine to dance with me in that light. So it's not a competition. It's actually a really cool, flowy dance that we all do together at different degrees. And it's sad to me that I see, and I have a stepdaughter, and she's a teenager, and I think about these things too, and I think about, okay, does she know how to be safe? Is she street smart? There's all these things, because I trust her 100%, but around her, and people are sneaky. These things are not obvious. So if you're not super intuitive, or you're on it, or you don't notice, what do you do? What do you do as a young girl or a woman or anybody?
So one of the things that I do love about Kamala Harris, and I do think it represents something for people in a way. And if you take politics, aside, if we're just talking about gender-based roles that are allowed to be something and someone in the world, I think she represents such an amazing opportunity for so many women. But also, I mean, like one thing you mentioned, the last conversation we had is, the world has been doing this forever. And only now, and I think it's based on the fact that, the world sees the US very much as forerunners and showcasing how we do life on this planet, so, and I think the fact that she's been put in that position, it gives I don't know, a smidgen of hope that so many people can come from humble backgrounds, and you and I both know this too. You come from humble backgrounds, and you were afforded an opportunity to create and be whoever you want to be. Angela Merkel, I look at her, she's been the Chancellor of Germany since 2005.
Wow.
It's on Wikipedia, since 2005. And you kind of go, hey, well, she's still kicking, and she's 66 years old doing this, right?
Long time too, 15 years.
The points that I want to mention is the UN, so the United Nations University, has done a study, and the study says it's not about men against women, but there's evidence to show through research that women have more women in public decision making, women that are in public decision making roles. You get policies that benefit women, children, and families. And they go on to speak about a whole bunch of why having more women in power roles are actually beneficial to the world.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that. I'm just saying. I mean,
I just want to mention it's ourworld.unu.edu. If you go and check out their website, it's the United Nations University, Our World.
I mean,
it's amazing. And you listen to them, you think, well, hello.
I don't. And yes, politics aside, I mean, Kamala Harris, she's an inspiration. She's more than just an inspiration, actually. She's an inspiration on so many levels, regardless of the timing. Yes. I say it very cautiously, because I'm not by any means taking away from the amazing thing that just happened. But my brain, for some reason, is saying, ding, ding, just keep in mind, yes, It's because I know the whole world sees us here as the world leaders.
Yeah.
For a long time. And I know, like, you know, we got a lot of competition, and China thinks they're the world leaders, and right? It's like a game of risk, really. Everyone needs to pull out their risk boards and start seeing like how accurate we can be. But
yeah.
It's crazy because, you know, if we are seen as the world leaders and our president needs to, you know, really step up to that that podium, it's important for us to then lead first, you know? Yeah. So when 66 other world leaders have been women, and so far back as 1993, sorry, they're in, I think it was Africa.
Yeah.
Rwanda. So, you know, it's just important for us to realize, okay, this is now the start of maybe catching up, because we need to really start. And when I say catching up to what, just, you know, it's not necessarily that a man is not good for the same job, but we need to start just diversifying. I mean, it's just so weird when you look at the politics, just look at the pictures of who sits in those seats. And it's very, very diversified. So we need to diversify. We need to start getting ahead. And also, you know, let's just go back to Kamala Harris for a second. She's a fairy tale for us as well. You know, she's a woman of color. She's a young woman. She's not, you know, I'm not an ageist. I'm just saying she's got a lot of stamina behind her still, you know. And also she has a love story to tell. And it's quite beautiful. I mean, she found the love of her life, I think, in her late 50s. And they just been married more in the recent years. And they're so happy. Apparently, they have such a wonderful marriage and a great love affair. So for the two of them, I'm just so grateful that all this is happening on multiple levels. She's an inspiration for multiple races, young girls, middle-aged girls, young women, you know, everybody, old woman, everyone. So that is amazing. I mean, it's to me, it's like, okay, it's the start. Now let's get going, you know?
So, and here's my conflict with this conversation is Poland has just released a law that says abortions are illegal. And I was watching that and I thought, you know, it's such a juxtaposition, because you're kind of going, part of the world wants us to move forward, and we want to get to a point where you have the right to not only have a say over your body, but you also have the right to be important. You have the right to be acknowledged. You have the right to matter, you know. And when I read, I mean, it was on the news, it was on France 24. I kind of watched this and I was going, are you kidding me? Like, and there was like riots and stuff happening, and all these women going, you know, why are we going back into supporting abortion? And there's so many religious beliefs around it and everything. And for me, it still gets back to the point that if we can't get to a point where we actually acknowledge the human first, we have a problem. We really, as humans, we have a problem. We have a massive problem, and we fail to recognize it constantly by taking away people's rights, by making people minority, by showing people that they're unimportant, by sexually harassing people, by all this crazy ass behavior that we get caught up in. And it's we have a problem. As humans, we have a problem.
It's so crazy, because just on the abortion topic, without getting too crazy into that specific topic, I've noticed living in two different countries has formulated two different opinions on this topic for me personally. And I didn't realize at first, you know, no matter how worldly I thought I was running around Africa as a young journalist, and just, you know, townships, I was just always, you know, in the mix of things. But it's culturally based very much. And I don't just mean cultures as in people's cultures. It's the culture of a country, the need of a country. You know, there seems to be, and I'm saying this very vaguely, but there seems to be with some people here, and there are many views going on, that abortion exists in certain areas to control certain populations. So with that in mind, you kind of do sit back and go, is this being used as a tool to manage the population?
Yeah.
You know, and society drives that. So, you know, but then going back to South Africa, that is not the thought at all. It's categorically not my feeling there at all. I mean, with our, and I hate to say this out loud, but with our rape cases being so unbelievably high, and maybe the highest in the entire world, we have to have that as an option. We have to give the human being the option to make these choices, the best choices for the human that is in existence, in my opinion. Now, I don't really have a strong opinion either way. It's just, you know, what do people need? And what are potential governments using as tools to control population? So, and what else is going on? You know, if that just popped up recently, what else is going on as far as abortion goes? A lot of people think it's just, well, I believe in abortion. No, I don't believe in abortion. But there's other things going on, you know, that we need to consider. And I think you're right. I agree with you, Kevin, where we have to put the human first, even if they don't make the right choices for themselves. That is their free will, you know? I know a lot of people think that people use abortion as, you know, contraception. And I'm pretty sure this happens a lot. But there are other really important uses for this. And it's, you know, there's mindsets of the child. I mean, it's such a complicated topic, but I am a strong believer that what already exists is very important. So the strong, you know, the strong belief that for some reason you are less important, the carrier, is weird to me. Why am I less important? You know, I'm already here. Yeah. So it's a weird topic, and we could go back all day long and change my own mind about it often, because there's so much to consider. But at the end of the day, women are the incredible creatures that give birth to children. I'm wondering, and knock wood, I'm just going to knock some wood here, because I'm wondering when they're going to start telling us to have children. To actually, you must have a child because it must be born. You know, I know there's science to consider when you get pregnant and all those great things, and spiritual and religious things. But if you're telling me not to have a baby or you're going to tell me soon enough when I should have a baby too.
And I think that's the conversation for me. It's not, you know, I'm just bringing up the abortion law as kind of going, you're taking away people's rights to decide what they want to do and how they should do it. Like, it stems back to, you know, where we started, where because we have cultures and laws and rules in the world that are not in support of humans. They are not in the support of respecting humans' decisions.
And why is that, Kev? Why? You see, the why to me becomes very interesting here, because a lot of people stop the conversation there. And I want to know, I'm starting to look behind what I call my veil, because I want to see behind this veil. Like, the conversation's old, and we're still having that, and we're still asking, like, why?
Yeah.
Why is this such a big deal? Why is it so important for people to control the carrier of the human?
And I think that's probably the essence of having these conversations, is the more people, and the thing is and that's the juxtaposition about having access to the internet. The more that people do, the more people are finding ways to share information and share news and share insights and opinions more now than ever before. And I think, you know, it's as a human race, we're getting to a point where we're asking really important questions, and like, what are these decisions that's influencing our lives, and not only our lives, but the lives of our children and the experiences we have in, I look at South Africa as a government, and the government that we have in South Africa, the promises that's been made and what's been delivered. Like, you're kind of going, wow, there's a massive gap between what's, like we had governmental relief fund in this country, and kind of like, so where's the money, guys?
We know where it is.
There's a big question. It's like, where's the money, guys?
All we need to do is find Jacob.
And I think the question that just lingers the whole time is, when do we get to a point where we actually just, and some countries get it right. Some countries, get it right, where they are actively involved with giving people the choice. I think Amsterdam, when COVID, their prime minister spoke about COVID, he said to them, as a fundamental rule, we are not going to tell you what to do. We will advise you what to do, but we are not going to make this a rule. Because as a fundamental rule, the evidence shows that if you go into lockdown and self-preserve, chances are that we can curb the virus. But I'm not going to stand here and tell you, you need to do this. And yet, the majority of the people went into lockdown voluntarily, based on the fact that he was giving them that choice.
And the information they probably received, they received good information, and they can make a good choice. Now, it's interesting. Now, that same mentality exists a little bit where I live, in Florida. And I'm going to just specifically talk about Florida here, because I've never lived in any other state. So I'm assuming it definitely permeates in other states, some more than others, maybe like California being a very liberal state. But this is an approach that America often takes, except that it's not consistent, because there's more than one voice happening at a time. Well, there's 50 voices happening because there's 50 states. So in Florida, when you ride a motorcycle, you don't need to wear a helmet. I mean, you can go on a very long trip and never wear a helmet, ever. There's people riding down the streets without helmets on. It's still, to this day, after 15 years, it freaks me out. They got the little scooters. They're all over the place. The little Vespas. They got big Harleys. Now, some of them wear helmets and some of them don't. We got like these big speed bikes going down the highways. They're pulling tricks all the time. No helmets, no gear, nothing. So the idea of that law, after I was like, what is going on here? Is that, well, it's up to you. But then my question is, what about seatbelts then? Why is seatbelts not up to me? And what about COVID? Why is that not up to me? And what about abortion? Why is that not up to me? And what about, it's not consistent. So you have these extremely liberal laws that indicate that same sort of Dutch, Netherlands or Amsterdam kind of thought, like, you respect the human enough to know that they will make the best choice for themselves. But then you have this influx of, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it all stems from the liberal and the conservative party. So, it's a bit of wish-washy. But I never really believed in that approach as much before. This is not the approach they use in South Africa, that's for sure. It's more of an iron fist. But, here I've come to appreciate that approach. Even as I'm working, I've got, a lot of safety rules in place, and it hasn't interfered in my business at all. I mean, the parents, and the colleagues and the businesses, they're all taking their own temperatures. They arrive with masks. During our shoot, we're far away. I got long lenses, but it doesn't interfere with the experience because we don't all have to stand in a mask. That is something we can agree on. But now that's my choice. In the beginning, that definitely wasn't my choice. And I'm wondering also, just to put it in there as a thought, after we change government hands on, I think it's January 22nd or 21st, I'm wondering how much choice we'll have as far as our freedom around COVID and our lives. But you're right. I think the humans deserve the choice at the end of the day, even if there exists humans who will make bad choices.
Yeah, and invariably, you're not going to get, you're never going to control people.
You can't. They rebel. They rebel.
They will rebel as a law. Like we have that sort of instinctive behavior that we will rebel against the laws. But on that note,
actually, I just want to say what you just said. Like, especially in a country that you've been telling since its existence that it is the best and the most amazing and free. And so I just, now that you say that, I have to, and I'm not going to put her name out there, but a friend of mine recently told me she was very scared. And I wondered why. I asked her, why is she scared? She said she's scared of the new government. And she's young, she's in her early 20s. And I said, you're going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. And she said to me something that I was floored. And she said, Lauren, I have been brought up in the South by parents, and really more of her father, who actually told her that America was the only free country in the entire world, and that any other country would be controlled by the government. And it was profound because she's young. She's in her early 20s, and she's walking around with that thought in her head, and she's scared. You got to wonder how we multiply that by a few million. So, it's an interesting experience. So yes, we do revere this country as a free country, and I love this country. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of greatness. I love South Africa. I'm the heart of a South African. Absolutely. I love the whole African continent, actually. But we do need to start giving people the responsibility that we keep asking them to take for their lives. Let's give it back to them.
And last sentiments on awareness around sexual conduct and how we treat women in the world. Like, what is your sentiments? Just your one-liner.
I'm not going to tell men what to do. Like, come on already, you know what to do. But what I do want to say to women and anybody actually struggling with this, because it's not just women, with all the different options we have these days, people's feelings are coming out in droves. So if you feel like you're not being taken seriously or you're harassed, I mean, we know how the, transgender communities, LGBTQ, just in general, they struggle with hate crimes as well. So, I would say that it's important to start taking responsibility for your own life. Okay. And what I mean by that is you got to get a goal in mind, and you need to start working towards that goal. And you have to have an ironclad vision. Just keep it. Just build up your discipline, your daily routine. Do everything that you do for yourself, and in an extension for the other people that are similar positions to you, for other women, for other whoever. And I just think that in that way, we're not constantly thinking about how men treat us. We will define how that happens in the future, hopefully without being haters. It doesn't help to hate on men. I know I have men, older men at this point, telling me that all men are disgustingly weird in the mind, and maybe that's a conversation for another day. But in my personal experience, I know amazing men, and I plan to always have these men close as part of my family, and to do the dance with them, and where their skill set comes in, that it will, and where mine comes in, it will, and we will take care of each other. So if you're feeling like no one's taking you seriously, start taking yourself a little bit more seriously. And I don't mean like become the world's most serious person, but start taking your routine seriously, start taking, what you say seriously, making amends with people. Just drive your own dream and have your own rules and boundaries about how you will and won't be treated. And also just, you should be able to put yourself anywhere without feeling unsafe. But in this world, we are a little bit unsafe. So be cautious, you know, just be cautious. I'm not telling you to dress different or doing anything, but just become aware and maybe start having conversations with men. You know, ask questions like, why do you disrespect me so much? Or why do you have that view? I'm just curious, instead of hating on it the whole time. Because honestly, I am in a mode of like, I don't get it, especially at this point. So why don't you just tell me? You know?
Absolutely. So, and I think that's also the sentiment that I have is have conversations, start having more conversations, and not let it become a thorn in someone's side, but actually just to have an honest, open conversation. Say, you know, I've noticed that you constantly say this, and I really don't appreciate it. Like what is your intention when you do that? Like, just have honest conversations, because I think part of change is really bringing an awareness to it. And you know, the Me Too movement has proved that. Black Lives Matter has proved that. There's so many things happening in the world that's pointing in that direction. And the more we actively, firmly have conversations around stuff, the more we are actually paying attention. And I think that's necessary. I think, you know, if bad behavior is bad behavior, you have to point it out and say, no, dude, that's bad behavior. I don't like that. Don't do that. But yes, Lauren, you are coming to South Africa.
Yes, I am, and I'm so excited. I've been waiting about 8 months for this to happen. So it's happening, and I will be in sunny South Africa. I can't wait to smell the air there. Sort of mid-December through sort of, I'd say, the first 2 weeks in January. So I will be taking some time out, but I will be available in January for some work. So if there's anybody out there that would like to discuss any level of branding for their business, we can absolutely look at that. All you need to do is go to my website, www.laurenbritsphotography.com, and click on complimentary consultation and just book a 30-minute chat with me online. And we can hash out if it's a good fit. And I would absolutely love to work with some business people in South Africa. You know that we specialize particularly in commercial architecture and branding for commercial architects themselves. So anybody wants to get hold of us, www.laurenbritsphotography.com, and we can arrange that. I'm really looking forward to my trip.
And all this information that's, she doesn't know it yet, I've just decided that all this information Lauren's sharing is going to be available on all the social media. So check it out, guys.
Thank you so much.
So you can get in touch with Lauren. Lauren, thank you for chatting. Thank you for your honesty and your openness and your willingness to share difficult conversations. And some of these things are not easy, I know, you know, but it's so cool to be able to talk about this coming from two different perspectives, coming from a family perspective, coming from so many options that we have here.
Right.
But thank you for have that.
Thanks, Kevin. I absolutely love talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you too, hopefully, when I get to South Africa, and we can actually maybe have an actual podcast in the same room, potentially.
Lars, have a wonderful evening or day, the rest of your day, and I will chat to you next week.
Chat to you soon, Kev. Bye.
Bye.